You know what time it is. Woo! Here we go. Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! We are back, lovelies. We are back. Usually I have the book. I usually have the book in front of me, but I didn't realize that I didn't have it nearby. Hi, y'all. Welcome to Storytime with Chris. Like I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max and relax and chillaxing time, work time, in between time, break time, playtime. Anytime you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you magical stories of both fantasy, science fiction, adventure, mystery, and everything else in between. So, I hope everybody's had a fabulous Monday. I have thus far. But I hope everybody is doing really, really well. I can't complain. I've had a couple of hiccups, but I don't let that bother me for too long because it tends to work out on its own. It's always good to be realistic and positive. It is such a thing. I am an optimist, but I am very much a grounded optimist is what I would like to call myself. I can't speak to the effects of others. So kids, I've talked about this before. Being an optimist is someone, a type of person, an archetype of a person who is able to see a situation from a positive standpoint despite it potentially being negative or less than savory. Whereas a pessimist is someone who looks at a situation just for the negative, not able to see the positive, and definitely gives people a reality check. So both are necessary, but both have their pros and cons. So I like to consider myself personally a grounded optimist. But we didn't come here to hear me talk. We came to hear me read. Okay, we're on chapter 28. 18. I'm sorry. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Ooh. Okay. So last time we were here, Elidir, Prince of Penlakar, he has shown up. He has lost his mind. He forced Taran, Fluter, Ilanwi, and Gurgi to lie to say that he found the Cauldron with Korkchan, the Black Cauldron, and he wants to take all the credit for it so he can get in Gwydion's good graces because he's tired of being second best, which primary example of somebody that has that type of attitude would be Jafar from Disney's Aladdin. That's a prime example of somebody who is a decorated person but always seeks power and recognition. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be recognized, but it becomes a problem when it becomes a systemic a systemic issue. And he tried to fight Taran. He pulled a sword on him, and Taran fell into the river. So now, we're going to see what happens next. Ooh, okay, so my phone is good. Let's go ahead and get started. And no, I do not own the music that you are hearing in the background. I do not own the music. And honestly, I happened upon this a while ago. It is by a YouTuber called Sleepyhead. It is fantasy forest music with beautiful fairy vocals. Shameful. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 18. There we go. Well, that's better. The Loss. It was night when Taran came to his senses. He found himself propped against a log, a cloak wrapped around him. His head throbbed, his body ached. Ilanwi was bending over him anxiously. Taran blinked his eyes and tried to sit up. For some moments his memory held only a mingling of sights and sounds, of rushing water, a stone, a shout. His head still whirled. A yellow light shone in his eyes. He realized, as his mind gradually cleared, that the girl had lit the golden sphere and had set it on the log. Beside him a small fire blazed. Crouched next to it, the bard and Gurgi fed twigs to the flames.
"I'm glad you decided to wake up,"
Ilanwi said, trying to appear cheerful. As Fluter and Gurgi came to kneel beside Taran,
"You swallowed so much of the river, we were afraid we'd never be able to pump it out of you. And that rap on your head didn't help matters."
"The Korkchan!" Taran gasped. "Elidir!" He looked around him. This fire. he murmured. "We dare not show a light. Aurorad's warriors—" "It was either build a fire or let you freeze to death," said the bard, "so of course we decided on the first. At this point," he added with a wry grin, "I doubt it can make too much difference since the cauldron is out of our hands. I don't believe Aurora will have quite the same interest in us. Happily, I might say." "Where is the cauldron?" Tard asked, despite his spinning head. He raised himself from the log.
"It is with Eladir," said Eilonwy.
"And if you ask where he is," put in the bard, "we can answer you very quickly. We don't know."
"Wicked prince goes off with wicked pot," Gurgi added. "Yes, yes, with ridings and stridings."
"Good riddance to them," agreed Fluter. "I don't know which is worse, the Corkshin or Eladir. Now at least they're both together." "You let him go?" Tard cried in alarm. He put his hands to his head. "You let him steal the Corkshin?" "Let is hardly the word, my friend," the bard answered ruefully.
"You seem to have forgotten,"
Eilonwy added.
"Eladir was trying to kill you. It's a good thing you fell into the river, because I can tell you the goings-on weren't very pleasant on the shore." "It was terrible, as a matter of fact," the girl went on. "We'd all started after Eladir. By that time, you're already floating down the river like a twig in a river. We tried to save you, but Eladir turned on us. I'm certain he meant to kill us," Eilonwy said. "You should have seen his face and his eyes. He was furious. Worse than that, Fluter tried to stand against him."
"That villain has the strength of 10, said the bard. "I could barely draw my sword. It's clumsy when you have a broken arm, you understand. But I faced him, a dreadful clash of weapons. You've never seen the prowess of an outraged flam. Another moment and I should have had him at my mercy, in a manner of speaking," the bard added quickly. "He knocked me sprawling."
"And Gurgi fought too. Yes, yes, with smitings and bitings."
"Poor Gurgi," said Eilonwy. "He did his best, but Eladir picked him up and tossed him against a tree. When I tried to draw my bow, he snatched it away and snapped it in his hands."
"He chased us into the woods after that," Fluter said. "I've never seen a man in such a frenzy, shouting at the top of his voice, calling us robbers and oath-breakers. And that we were trying to keep him in second place. That's all he's able to say or think now, if you choose to call that thinking." Tard shook his head sadly. "I fear the black beast has swallowed him as Adion warned," he said. "I pity Eladir from the bottom of my heart." "I should pity him more," muttered Fluter, "if he hadn't tried to slice my head off." "For long I hated him," Tard said, "but in the little while I bore Adion's brooch, I believe I saw him more clearly. His heart is unhappy and tormented. Nor shall I forget what he said to me, that I taunted him for seeking glory yet clung to it myself." Tard spread his hands in front of him. "With dirty hands," he said heavily.
"Pay no heed to what Eladir says," Eilonwy cried. "After what he made us do, he has no right to blame anyone for anything."
"And yet," Tard said softly, almost to himself, "he spoke the truth."
"Did he?" said Eilonwy. "It was only too true. For his own honor, he would have slain us all."
"We managed to escape from him," Fluter continued. "That is, he finally stopped pursuing us. When we came back, the horses, the Corkshin, and Eladir were gone. After that, we followed down the river looking for you. You hadn't gone far, but I'm still amazed that anyone can swallow so much water in such a short distance." "We must find him," Tard cried. "We dare not let him keep the Corkshin. You should have left me and gone after him." Tried to climb to his feet. "Come on now, there's no time to lose." Fluter shook his head. "I'm afraid there's no use to it, as our friend Gwistel might say. There's not a sign of him anywhere. We have no idea where he planned to go or what he had in mind to do. He has too long a start on us, and though I hate to admit it, I don't believe any one of us or all of us together could do very much against him." The bard glanced at his broken arm. "We're hardly the best way to deal with the Corkshin, or Eladir, even if we find them." Tard stared silently into the fire. "You too speak the truth, my friend," he said with great gloom. "You have all done more than I could ever ask. Alas, much better than I. Yes, it would be useless now to seek Eladir, as useless as our quest has been." We have forfeited all for nothing. Adion's brooch, our honor, and now the courtship itself. We shall return to Caer Dallben empty-handed. Perhaps Ellidyr was right, he murmured. It is not fitting for a pig boy to seek the same honor as a prince.
Pig boy?
Eilonwy cried indignantly.
Don't ever speak of yourself that way, Tarn of Caer Dallben. No matter what has happened, you are not a pig boy. You are an assistant pig keeper. That's honor in and of itself. Not that they don't mean the same thing when you come right down to it, she said. But one is proud and the other isn't. Since you have a choice, take the proud one.
Tarn said nothing for a time and raised his head to Eilonwy. Adion once told me there is more honor in a field well plowed than in a field steeped in blood. As he spoke, his heart seemed to lighten. I see now that what he said was true above all. I do not begrudge Ellidyr his prize. I too shall seek honor, but I shall seek it where I know it will be found. The companions passed the night in the forest, and next morning, turning southward across gentler land, they saw neither huntsmen nor Gwythaints, and they made little attempt at concealment, for, as the bard had said, the forces of Arorn sought the courtship, and not a pitiful band of stragglers. Unburdened, they moved more easily. Though without Luagor and Melalas, their pace on foot was slow and painful. Tarn trudged silently, his head bowed against the bitter wind. Dead leaves drove against his face, but he paid them no heed, filled as he was with the distress of his own thoughts. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry, y'all. I didn't want to yawn into the mic. Ooh. Yawning is contagious. It makes other people yawn. Sorry. Some while after midday, Tarn caught sight of movement among the trees covering a hill crest. Foreseeing danger, he urged the companions to hurry across the open meadow and find cover in a thicket, but before they could reach it, a party of horsemen appeared at the rise and galloped toward them. Tarn and the bard drew their swords, Gurgi knocked an arrow into his bowstring, and the weary band made ready to defend themselves as best they could. Fluter suddenly gave a great shout and waved his hands excitedly. "Put away your weapons," he cried. "We're safe at last. These are Morgant's warriors. They bear the colors of the house of Madoc." The warriors pouted closer. Tarn, too, cried out with relief. They were indeed King Morgant's riders, and at their head rode King Morgant himself. As they reined up beside the companions, Tarn hurried to Morgant's steed and dropped to one knee. "Well met, sire," he cried. "We feared your men were servants of Arorn." King Morgant swung down from the saddle. His black cloak was torn and travel-stained, his face haggard and grim, but his eyes still held the fierce pride of a hawk. A trace of a smile flickered on his lips. "But you would have stood against us nonetheless," he said, raising Tarn to his feet. "What of Prince Gwydion of Cole?" Tarn asked quickly and with sudden uneasiness. "We were separated at Darkgate and have had no word of them. Adion, alas, is slain, and Doli too, I fear." "Of the dwarf there has been no trace," answered Morgant. "Lord Gwydion and Cole's son of Colfer are safe. They seek you even now, though," Morgant added with another half-smile. "It has been my good fortune to find you." "The huntsmen of Anuvan pressed us sharply at Darkgate," Morgant went on. "At last we fought free of them and began to make our way toward Caer Cadan, where Lord Gwydion hoped you would join us." "We had not reached there," said Morgant, "before we had word of you, and that you had taken it on yourselves to go to the marshes of Morva. That was a bold venture, Tarn of Caer Dallben," Morgant added, "as bold perhaps as it was ill-advised. You should learn that a warrior owes obedience to his lord." "It did not seem we could do otherwise," Tarn protested. "We had to find the Korkchid before Arorn. Would you not have done the same?" Morgant nodded curtly. "I do not reproach your spirit, but would have you understand that Lord Gwydion himself would hesitate to make a decision of such weight. We would have known nothing of your movements had not Gwistel of the Fairfolk brought us news. Lord Gwydion and I separated then to search for you."
Gwistel?
Eilonwy interrupted.
Not Gwistel. Why would he wouldn't have done the least thing for us until Dolly threatened to squeeze him. Gwistel? All he wanted was to be let alone and hide in his wretched burrow.
Morgant turned to her. You speak without knowledge, princess. Among all who hold the waypost, Gwistel of the fair folk is the shrewdest and bravest. Do you believe King Idaleg would trust a lesser servant so close to a Nuven? But, he added, if you misjudged him, it was his intention that you do so. As for the Cauldron itself, Morgad went on as Tard looked at him in amazement, though you failed to bring it from Morva, Prince Ellidyr has done us noble service. Yes, Morgad added quickly, my warriors came upon him near the river Tevin in the course of our search. From his words I understood that you were drowned and your companions scattered, and that he bore the cauldron from Morva.
That's not true!
Eilonwy began, her eyes flashing angrily. Be silent! Tarn cried.
No, I will not be silent,
retorted Eilonwy, spinning around to face Tarn.
You aren't going to tell me you still think you're bound by that oath you made us all swear.
What does she mean? Morgad asked. His eyes narrowed, and he studied Tarn closely. What does she mean?
I'll tell you what I mean,
Eilonwy answered, heedless of Tarn's protest.
It's very simple. Tarn paid for it and paid dearly. We carried it almost on our backs every step of the way from Morva until Ellidyr came along. He helped us, he certainly did that, just the way a robber helps you tidy up your chamber. That's the truth of it, and I don't care what anybody else says.
Does she indeed speak the truth? Morgad asked. When Tarn did not answer, Morgad nodded slowly and continued in a thoughtful tone. I believe she does, though you stay silent. There was much of Prince Elidyr's tale which rang false to me. As I once told you, Tarn of Caerdalban, I am a warrior, and I know my men. But when you face Ellidyr himself, I shall know beyond all doubt. Come, said Morgad, helping Tarn to his steed. We shall ride to my camp. Your task is ended. The Cauldron is in my hands. Morgad's warriors took up the rest of the companions, and they galloped swiftly into the wood. The warlord had made camp in a wide clearing, well protected by trees, its approach guarded by a deep ravine, and the tents had been blended in with a line of underbrush. Tarn saw Luogor and Melalas tethered among the steeds of the warriors. A little apart, Islamak pawed the ground nervously and pulled at her halter. Near the center of the clearing, Tarn caught his breath at the sight of the black Cauldron, which now had been removed from its sling. Though two of Morgad's warriors stood by with drawn swords, Tarn could not shake off the sense of fear and foreboding that hung like a dark mist about the Cauldron. Do you not fear Rorn will attack you and gain the Cauldron once again? Tarn whispered. Morgad's eyes hooded over, and he gazed Tarn a glance both of anger and pride. Whoever challenges me shall be met, he said coldly, be it the Lord of Anuven himself. A warrior drew aside the curtain of one of the pavilions, and the warlord led them inside. There, bound hand and foot, lay the still form of Ellidyr. His face was covered with blood, and he appeared so grievously battered that Eilonwy could not stifle a cry of pity. How is this? Tarn exclaimed, turning to Morgad in shock and reproach. Sire, he added quickly, your warriors had no right to use him so ill. This is shameful and dishonorable treatment. Do you question my conduct? Morgad replied. You have much to learn of obedience. My warriors heed my orders, and so shall you. Prince Ellidyr dare to resist me. I caution you not to follow his example. At a call from Morgad, armed soldiers strode quickly into the tent. The war leader made a brave and brief gesture toward Tarn and his companions. Disarm them and bind them fast. And that is where we shall end for tonight. Friends, the plot thickens. Because who is King Morgad? Like, who is he really? Where does his alliance ship go? Where does his loyalty lie? We will find out next time we meet. I love this. I love this series. I love the Prydain Chronicles. But as we know from previous books we read, not all people are truly good. Not all people are truly evil. There is complexity in between. We have to discern what that is and how we approach it. Always be vigilant, kids. Always. The truth is typically what you see, not what you hear. So, always remain vigilant of those close to you. Stay well, young warriors. I'll see you next time.